welcome to Dear Katie, the podcast that amplifies courageous voices and real stories of resilience, healing, and hope after trauma. Inspired by the many letters Katie has received over the last 20 years, each week she interviews survivors, healers, and experts to honor their stories and explore the many paths to healing and hope. Before we begin, please know, many episodes of Dear Katie cover sensitive topics related to sexual violence, trauma, and recovery. Listen with care and take the space you need to take care of yourself. Your well-being is what matters most. Now, let's join Katie and today's guest for a conversation that matters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dear Katie podcast. I am your host, Katie Koestner, and as all of you know, I myself as a survivor started this podcast really to help each and every one of us journey together, listening to various perspectives. People have been through all kinds of things. People are doing a lot with their own healing process or pouring themselves into various new adventures as a result, and, perhaps researchers. So we have the whole gamut. And I always like to say self-care is the must. We will be right here if you want to take a break and come back to us at a later time. If you are journaling, I'm certain you're adding just boatloads every week with all the great ideas and information from each of our guests. And today I'm certain Kira Wahlstrom is going to be the same lovely story, amazing, powerful journey herself. So I'm going to just say a few things and then let Kira tell you more about her journey. So Kira grew up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. She went to a college in Massachusetts called Dean College. I've actually spoken there, so I do know it. She's had many career paths. She's worked in schools. She's managed retail stores. She has been a property manager for a major retailer and is a lighting designer at one point for nightclubs and theater. So she has done a million different hats. Currently, she's out in California with her two grown children living on a horse ranch, and she jumps horses as a hobby. Oh my goodness, Kira. So what a life you've lived so far.
Right? Yeah. Well, I do. It's my children actually that I live here with, not my grandchildren yet.
Okay. No hurry.
No hurry. We're not going to hurry. We're not going to hurry into that, I hope, Katie.
Yeah. No. If you just get done with one stage, you don't want to necessarily jump right into the next.
No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. And I'm happy to age, and I'm happy to still be alive. But there are certain things that I can wait for.
Absolutely. Well, your life is not yet half done. Let's say that. So when you were growing up in Cape Cod is such a unique place. I feel like a lot of people go there for vacations, but you actually got to live and grow up. And did you go to high school there as well?
I did. I went to Nauset High School, and it was wild. I think that there was only, might get the numbers wrong, but about 168 people in my graduating class with 4 to 5 towns. So it's a very small community. There's only a couple thousand people that live in your town in the winter, and then in the summer, it just explodes. It's all vacationers. It's a little different now, but growing up, it was very small.
Gotcha. I can imagine in the summer it was probably like easy to find a million different jobs, and all the people who were around, I'm sure they wanted to eat out and have fun and go on boats and all the good things.
Yes. I did a lot of different jobs growing up. I even made donuts for a while, and I cooked in a seafood restaurant, and of course babysitting and all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you're done growing up there, and what were you going to study? Were you riding horses back then too? Or did you start the horse part later in life?
Well, I did start riding when I was about 5 years old, and I've ridden on and off my entire life. I did take some time off in my 20s and really picked it back up again in my 30s. But I have ridden almost my whole life, yes. And I was going to study in college. I didn't know what. I didn't know if I wanted to. I'm dyslexic, so I had a horrible time and so hard in school. It's just so hard. And so I wasn't going to go to college, and I'm so glad I did. And I ended up studying like management of travel, and I thought maybe I would work, in travel for a while or hotels. And I just love the management part. And that's when I started working in retail.
Okay.
Right.
So Yeah. So when you were at Dean, were you studying business or something?
Yeah, like the business aspect of travel. So like hotel management and things like that.
Okay. So you're done. Then you finish up at Dean. And what happens next in your world?
I went into working at a science store, which is no longer open. It was called the World of Science at the time. And I worked at the Cape Cod Mall, actually. And
Okay.
I did that for a long time until I met a friend of mine who was in a band, and he worked in Provincetown. And I ended up moving to Provincetown. And that's when I started in theater, and I started doing lights for nightclubs and learning how to design lighting. And I fell in love with it. I moved there when I was about 21, I think, and I just fell in love with the world of lighting and the community and the nightclubs. And, it's fun and it's exciting, and it was a challenge. And I had to teach myself. At that time, there wasn't really schools, or I didn't know about school, going to school for lighting or sound design. So I taught myself all of it.
Oh, so cool. I think it's sometimes nice when you just learn it on your own, just one day at a time with one experience at the time.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes then, you own it in your whole mind, which is awesome. So you were doing that, and that was in Boston or in Cape Cod?
Well, I started in Provincetown, and then I started getting jobs in Boston. I worked at Avalon, and then I started working at a bunch of other clubs in Boston. And I mostly moved to Boston, and I traveled the country a little bit doing big parties, lighting for big parties. And then I moved to Boston, and I lived in Boston, and I worked at nightclubs every night doing lighting.
Wow.
Yeah, for over 25 years I did that.
Oh my goodness. That's a huge chunk of life.
Yeah. No, I really loved it. And, I did a little bit in between, towards the end, I also taught at school, like I talked about. And then I eventually worked for that major retailer as a property manager at the end before I moved to California.
And when you were, just out of curiosity, when you were teaching in school, was that like a high school, a public school, a college? Like, what was the school teaching stuff?
It was a charter. It's still there. It's a charter school, and it does K through 8. And I started because my kids got into it. It was a Montessori charter school, and I started substituting and helping the art teacher. And then I started substituting in all different classes, and it just
Nice.
it just spiraled into teaching assistant and teaching and all sort. I loved it, working with in special need, working in special ed, and working hard. Yeah, I loved it.
Cool.
And kids and nightclubs are a lot alike.
I like the parallel.
It's true.
Yeah, predictable, a little whimsical,
Yep.
and sparkly all the time, right?
Right. And I was doing all of those at the same time at one point. After my attack, I worked about 110 hours a week to keep my mind busy.
Oh wow. Okay, let's pause.
Okay.
You just said
Yep.
this oh wow. So all I know is what you sent so far, but maybe for the sake of our listeners, what, I don't know, nobody wants to trigger anything, but I know you've been steeped in this case, your own life, and then the others around you. So let's start maybe at the very beginning. Where and when did this happen?
So I was working at a nightclub called Estate in Boston, and it happened in Boston in the Radisson Hotel in their parking garage. I was leaving work, and a man, I don't know, I don't know if you want me to go into detail, but I don't want to trigger anyone, but I was beaten and raped twice, and he tried to kill me. So, and I did get away. And then I went to the emergency room, and we found the police, and they found him in the emergency room next to me while I was getting my rape kit done.
What? Okay, wait. Let's go back just for a second.
Yep.
So this was in the fall, in the winter?
It was May 1st, 2009.
Okay, May 1st, 2009. You're working in the nightclub at the Radisson. You're done work, and you're about how old then?
I was 35. I was 35. Yep. And I worked across the street. It's anyone that knows Boston, it's in the theater district by the Wang. And I worked at Estate, and it's right next to Boston Commons. So I would leave work and walk If I had to park in a parking garage, I always parked at the Radisson because, I'd never had a problem there. You try not to park in parking garages because they aren't, they're dark at night, but everyone from the nightclub parks there, and there isn't always parking on the street.
Gotcha.
That's just the way it is.
Okay, so maybe this is like you're done work and it's 2:30
in the morning. Yep.
Yeah. And you go back and you've been in this garage, you've parked there before.
I have parked there before, yes. For years and years, because I worked in the area, so I parked there. Yeah, it was common for me to park there.
Yeah. So you never had any problems. And this one night are you at your car when you get attacked?
No, I actually, until I went to trial, I didn't realize that he was on the elevator first. I thought he had followed me on the elevator. And I found out at trial because I saw the video for the first time because they had video of it. And I walked in to the vestibule from to get on the elevator to go up to the second floor. My car was on the second floor, and I noticed the fourth floor button was already pushed, so I hit the second floor. And as soon as I stepped 1 foot out of the elevator, he grabbed me.
Oh my God.
And I had said hi to him when I got in. I said hi, whatever. And I said hi, and I turned around and I pushed the second floor. And as soon as the door opened, he grabbed my head from behind. He dragged me 148 feet by my head and my hair and my jaw to a stairwell, like how parking garages have stairwells. Yeah, and shoved me through the door, and the whole time I was trying to get my car open because you carry your keys at night. You try to be careful. These are things you're taught. Carry your keys. That way you're not rummaging through your bag. I had a cell phone at the time, so I'm holding my cell phone in one hand, I had my keys in the other. And the whole time he was dragging me, I really didn't know what was going to happen, to be quite honest with you. I thought he was going to mug me. I didn't know until I saw that stairwell coming, and then I thought he was going to kill me. And the whole time he was telling me to shut up, that he didn't want to have to kill me. But I honestly rape never crossed my mind. And until this point, I didn't really know anyone or I thought I didn't know anyone, right? I thought I didn't know anyone that had been raped, and that no one talks about it, Katie, right? Like no one says to you, growing up, I heard you have a chance to say no, right? Like you hear more about date rape and stuff, more than stranger rape, or more than, someone grabbing you off the street and putting you in a van. I just didn't hear about it as much.
Right.
It wasn't really a thought until and even when he shoved me through that door and I was in that stairwell at first, I thought he was just going to kill me.
Oh God, Karen.
And he was telling me that I had to shut up or he was going to kill me. So that's where I thought that was going. I didn't think. And that, obviously once he started ripping off my clothes, I knew. But up until that point, I didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't really a thought in my head. And it happened so quickly, even though, 148 feet is a long way to scream and fight, but
Yeah. And Kira, I'm just so in admiration that you somehow thought of doing all the things that you were doing, even to survive, right?
You snap into survival mode, I guess, right now. Like, it's amazing what your brain does.
Right. Yeah, I think that part is such an unknown. And I feel like now you lived a movie scene that, people play out in their horror stories, right?
Right.
And you were actually not acting, you were there, and it was real and it was terrifying. And I think some people don't understand at all, like how you can be paralyzed with fear and just in shock. And yet just, you would say, they say, what were you the flight or fight?
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing because he's telling me he's going to kill me. And as he's raping me, he was beating me the whole time. And it's funny that people say, your life flashes in front of your eyes. And it does. And it's wild because all I could see is my kids' faces. And at the moment he was trying to break my jaw. And I said, literally all I need to do is get out of here. So it doesn't matter what happens if I can walk out of here, right? Like the main point isn't what's happening to you at that point. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. These horrible things are going to happen to you. But if you can get out alive, that's all that matters. And so, I was going to get out of there alive. So, and I also strangely refused to close my eyes. I was like, I absolutely am going to look at him the entire time. I need to remember what he looks like. I need to remember.
Wow.
And also when I did close my eyes for a second, what do I see? My kids' faces. Well, that's not really what you want to see, right? So wow, these horrible things are happening to you. So
yeah,
I focused on looking at him, and I focused on getting out of there alive. That was all that mattered.
Right. And my goodness, when he was, I hate to ask it, but you said he raped you twice and was beating you. And that sounds like a very long time, Kira.
Yeah. I mean, it was somewhere around 25 to 30 minutes I was in there.
Oh. Okay. And so finally it's over. And then what happens?
After the whole ordeal, and he took money from me, and he picked up my phone, and he had wanted me to call him his boyfriend and all of these things. And, at the end, he apologized for coming so fast and said, next time it won't happen that way. And I said, I'm sure it won't. All I wanted was my bag and my phone because I knew I needed to call someone and I needed to get out of there. And he handed me back my phone, and he said, I know you won't tell anyone, or you won't call anyone. I said, nope, absolutely not. I'm not going to. And he took off out the door where he had dragged me through, and I went down the stairs, half dressed, and grabbed all my stuff and ran. And my friends were still at the nightclub, so I started calling them immediately and ran across the street. And apparently I'd run past a detail cop. They were fixing the street. There were police right outside the parking garage the whole time I was being raped. They were doing road work. So there was a detail cop. And I apparently ran right by him, and I don't remember any of it. But what I do remember is looking over my shoulder at one point to see if he was following me, and I had seen him across the street headed towards the park. So I just kept running. And at that point, I ran into two of my friends on the street, and another friend had called me back, and they got the detail cop. And I remember when they got the detail officer, it was really strange because my friends had told him I was attacked in the garage, and the cop, I never said what the guy was wearing. And the police officer gave a description of the man.
What?
And I was, and I was like, that's so strange. I didn't tell him what he was wearing. No one had asked me.
Oh my God. And
I thought it was just so strange, Katie. And I was like, whatever, and also you're now in survival mode. Nothing is normal. And they sent a woman police officer, and I got in her car and sat in the front seat, and all my hair was falling out, and there's people everywhere now. And I already looked across the street, and there's already a news camera at the Radisson. And I was like, all this seems very strange.
Right.
And so I had to go back to the Radisson and identify where he had raped me, but they had already had it taped off because there was, they knew where it was. There was, condom wrappers, and there was my car trunk was open, and I had dropped all these like flyers for the nightclub I was carrying, so they knew where it had happened. And then they took me to the hospital, and they asked me if I wanted to go to, I don't remember if it was Mass General or Boston Medical or Tufts. And I said Tufts because my children had been born there and my doctors were all there, and I felt comfortable going there. To Tufts for the rape kit. And when I first got into my room, and the woman officer stayed with me, and she said, just so you know, a woman was raped in there 11 days ago by the same guy, and he tried to he was going to throw her off the balcony.
Oh my God.
They knew who the man was. That's how they ID'd him. He was wearing the same thing. They had been looking for him. They had already questioned him once, I guess, at the homeless shelter. He was homeless, and I don't really remember the details of why they couldn't hold him. I don't know if they knew it wasn't him or not. I don't know. But anyway, and so they knew who he was. Actually, the hotel had pictures of him up. They had passed out pictures. They knew who this guy was. Everyone knew who he was already. So they were already looking for him.
Oh my gosh, that is insane.
Yeah.
Well, I can't, and I guess, so what, I want to ask so many questions here. I don't know. So he's so go back up to the place where you were in the hospital and he's next to you. Like, how did that come to be?
So I'm doing the rape kit, which is another form of hell for anyone that's been through a rape kit. You all know that it's horrible. And I'm halfway through the rape kit and they're doing the internal exam and we hear a scuffle outside.
Okay.
And, something slamming up, like, how they have like some emergency rooms have glass walls and then they have a curtain across it. And the person examining me and I were like, what, what is going on out there? Whatever. Well, he had gone to, he must have been watching and he had seen me picked up by the ambulance and talking to the police. He went to the emergency room either to hide there or to see what was going on, who knows, and said that he had sex with a prostitute for $60 and was worried he caught an STD. So a vigilant nurse actually called the police and said, he's here now. And he was in the room next to me while I was getting my rape kit done.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's even more terrifying. And why? I mean, it feels like really poor. I guess I'll go back. Are you glad they told you that? Would have been worse if you walked out and saw him? Like, I
wouldn't have. It happened at now we're at like 5 a.m. So I wouldn't have seen him anyway. But no, I was glad that they told me. And they had asked me if I wanted to ID him right there on the spot. And I said, no, I'm half naked getting a rape kit done. I don't want to see him right now.
Right.
And the officer said, that's fine because we know it's him. So, it didn't matter.
Okay.
But because they were already looking for him. So they knew.
Yeah, like insane. Okay. So I don't know if we had a sane nurse talk about the process, but we haven't had anyone else who actually has talked about like any feedback for any survivor listening, just so they might feel like if we had one and you had one, is there any like commiserating and sharing that you would do that might help them feel like, okay, I totally understand. I'm not the only one who went through this.
They're horrible because after you've been raped, and for anyone that hasn't had one, they understand it's so forensic. Like you have to stand on a paper thing and on the floor and they scrape all the, DNA off you and they scrape skin off you and they, I had to take off all of my clothes. They take everything and bag it. They take, they go under every nail, try to get DNA. They go, they had to pull 50 strands of hair out of my head by the root. Now I have just had my hair pulled, right? And I was dragged 148 feet by my head and already had all of this hair pulled out, but they can't use that. They have to pull it out by the root. So then you have to sit there and have 50 strands, I think it's 50 strands of hair pulled out, by the root. And then, and everything is it took hours. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours as a rape kit. It's amazing. And it is very necessary. And unfortunately, everyone should do it, but it is a horrible experience after you've been raped.
Yeah.
They pull your pubic hair out. They're doing an internal exam. They're doing all of these things and you've just been raped. So now you feel like you're losing control again, right? You're not in.
Yeah.
Sane nurses are wonderful. And yes, they try to keep you safe and and you're disassociated usually, or at least I was at this time. So it's pretty numb, but still it's not it's a horrible experience.
Yeah. It sounds just awful. Well, I think for any of our listeners who don't understand how bad it can be. I think you've just reinforced how awful and terrible, but how necessary, because at the end of the day, this is part of how you went through the criminal system with that evidence, right?
Right. Well, fortunately, so he ended up pleading guilty. So I don't even know I know they processed my rape kit because it did go to trial. So it was available for for use, if I suppose is one way to put it, if they needed it. I don't know how to phrase that, but thankfully he ended up pleading guilty at the last second in his criminal trial.
Why do you think, okay, so how long, I guess, let's go back. So you're done with the hospital, and then what happens next?
And then you get to go home, right? And that's so fun. You get to go home and try to live, which is the hardest part. And for me, because they had caught him and he was in jail and they held him on $1 million bail, and he had raped another woman that, supposedly only one that they know of, but, it's hard to believe that there was only two of us, because I guess he had been living there or going in and out of there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, we don't think we were the only two.
Right.
No one else ever came forward.
Oh, God.
So then you start talking to police all the time. And I had to go in front of the grand jury, because you have to go to grand jury because they have to see if they have enough evidence for a trial. So I did that within, I think, 2 or 3 weeks after I was raped. And then we sat and waited. And because he was insane, and they had to put him in a Bridgewater State Mental Hospital. He was there in solitary confinement at a maximum security prison in Massachusetts. We didn't go to trial. That was in 2009. And I went to trial the criminal trial went in 2013.
Oh my gosh, 4 years.
So for 4 years.
My gosh, that sounds just awful. And I guess another question then, Kara, is during that time, you alluded to it before. Remember, you said you were like 119 hours a week, or I forget the exact number. You said you were working, but
I hadn't started that yet. I was in a downward spiral. I was a disaster. We lost the house we lived in. I couldn't function. I drank too much. I self-medicated. I would go to work. I absolutely went to work, but I would sleep all day, get up, go to work. I couldn't take care of the kids. I just couldn't. I didn't know how to live. My brain could not process what had happened to me.
Oh my gosh. But wait, you had already had the 2 children, and did you have a partner? And where was that person?
He was at home with them. He worked during the day, and he took care of them at night when I worked.
Okay. So the bad spiral, and that was did it start like immediately?
Oh, immediately. Well, I think, I was immediately numb and shut down to the world. I couldn't function. I couldn't process what happened to me. I couldn't function. I had to go to infectious disease. Sometimes I went every week for a month for the first year. Sometimes I went, every other month. It's a whole series of things after your rape. You have to get shots, and I was on AIDS medication just in case. And there's all of these, unknowns, and they take your blood for a year after you're raped so that, in case anything shows up. And then I was drinking too much. So sometimes my liver levels were too high. So I'd have to go back the next day. And I went back to Tufts. I did it all at Tufts. So I was going back to the same hospital, constantly. And I still worked in the same area. And, I would have to drive to work, and I would disassociate the whole drive there. And then you got to find parking, because now for sure you're not parking in a parking garage, right? But then you got to park on the street. So I would go hours early so I could sit in my car and get the nerve up to walk to work by myself.
Oh my gosh.
And then you work all night. It was just a disaster. And I had so many triggers, and I was spiraling, and I didn't know how to control it. And I didn't know I was as bad as I was at first. You don't know. You're not really connected to the real world anymore. At least I wasn't.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this goes on for how long?
For many years. For many, many years. I mean, the criminal trial, there's some, good things about this. And I don't know if they're good, but he was in jail the whole time. or in and out of mental hospital. So that was like one thing in my head I didn't have to necessarily worry about was him on the street. Of course, then I was afraid of everything, but I didn't feel safe anywhere, but at least I knew he was in jail. And his criminal trial did help when I went to that in, I think it was in July of 2013. That did help to know he was behind bars, but he only got 15 years with time served between the two, me and the other woman that he attacked.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I think, and I'm might be wrong, but I think it was like 11 counts of rape and, attempted murder, like all these assault charges and all of these things. But they gave him time served and 15 years. So we'll get to that part later, but it wasn't enough. But because he pled guilty, I think he got less time. But
and so let's talk about that. I guess the criminal trial itself. Can you share some highlights on what happened during that and how long it lasted?
Well, thankfully, it was only one day because he ended up pleading guilty and never had to testify. But I did get to meet the other woman that was there.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
That was attacked, and she's never gone public, and she doesn't talk, and so it's something to say. She did work for the hotel. She was an employee there, and I did get to meet her. She didn't speak a lot of English, but it was nice to meet her. She did give me a hug, and then she helped my lawyers during my civil trial a little bit. But thankfully, I didn't have to testify. But criminal trial was not fun either because then you're in the same room as him again. So that was scary. And then I could really get a good look at him and see how big he was. Your memory is a funny thing when it's protecting you.
Yeah. Do you think your brain downsized or upsized or?
I think it blocked it out completely. And I it's almost, I think I was blocking out parts of it. I never really thought about what he looked like. I don't think after just about what he did to me.
Okay. And then, so it's a 1 day thing, and then you do find out what happens to him or not?
I do. Yeah, he pled guilty, so they just kept him. They took him. I mean, he was already in custody. He hadn't, since the night he was caught in the emergency room, he'd been in jail or in a mental hospital.
Okay. So now let's talk about where you start. You said the darkness lasted a long time. So how do you crawl back out from underneath all that?
Well, I was my civil trial. I ended up suing the parking garage where it happened in the hotel. And that trial did not go till 2015, 2 years after the criminal trial. And, I did end up finding it was hard for me to find therapists because my case was so public and I was suing people. And so it was hard to find therapists that would take me because they knew they would have to go to trial. And, I would go through phases after the criminal trial where there would be times I'd be better and times I'd be worse, but it was bad for me. My brain would disassociate so bad. I would get in the car to drive somewhere and I couldn't even remember where I was going, and then you get the kids in the car and you have to lock the doors first because safety now is the most important thing in the whole world, right? You can't talk to strangers. You can't sit next to them. You can't walk down the street. You have to watch where you're going. Everything was, I was living in survival mode, I guess is the best way to put it. Because
your kids,
I felt that I was constantly under attack after that, right? Your brain is at war after that because it's just trying to protect you.
Right. So, Kira, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing it, but did you have boys or girls at this time, and how old were they?
Well, I have one boy. I still have one boy and one girl. And when I was raped, we were 5 and 2.
Okay. So did you feel anything differently for either, but based on their gender, or you were just equally in protective mode for both?
I think I was angry at the whole world, so it didn't matter people's gender at all, including my children. And I think that I was protective of both of them equally, but they didn't even know me growing up without not being in survival mode for a long time. And I think it was extremely hard on them. Like my son would wait up at night when I was at work and hide under the table because he thought I was going to die when I went to work because they knew something bad happened to me, but they didn't know what. And he was old enough to know that I hadn't come home that night. And my daughter would sleep when I wasn't home, but when I was home, she would sit over me. And I couldn't allow them to touch me anymore after I was raped because it felt like I could shut down when I went out in public and disassociate. So, working in a nightclub, yes, there's lots of people around, but I could disassociate, right? And it's almost like an out-of-body experience. So if I bumped into someone or someone touched me, most of the time I wouldn't even notice it happened. But when I was with my family and my children, I couldn't disassociate as well. So they would touch me and it would be like acid burning on my skin. I wanted to rip my skin off. So, having small children, and I don't even want to touch them. They would come to wake me up, like I'd fall asleep all the time. I was so depressed. My body, brain would shut down and they would come to wake me up and I would, wake up punching and screaming. So that is what they lived with for a very long time. And it's not a fun way to live. And so then I'm upset with myself, right? Because I can't fix myself. It's a whole downward spiral.
Right. Okay. So we have to get to the bright light, Kira.
Yes. So get to the bright light. So then I go to the civil trial in 2015 and I win. I won by unanimous jury, which was fantastic. And I thought that I was gonna, everything was gonna be great. To make a very long story short, the judge tried to overturn the jury verdict and it ended up going to appeals court. And my case wasn't over till late November, early December of 2019. The appellate court upheld the jury verdict and I won. And then that's when I moved to California. And that is when I really started to work on myself. Somewhere between 2015 and 2017, I even got worse mentally. And I knew I had to change something on my own. So that's when I started digging into work. And in order to keep my brain busy and from going to dark places, I started working about 110 hours a week. So I would work at school 45 hours a week. And then I would work at the nightclubs at night. And then I worked for a major retailer 4 days a week.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So you were back.
But it kept my brain busy.
Right. Right. Which is really important.
Right. And that's when I started to pull myself out. And really, for me, even though I didn't want to leave my friends, moving, I knew I needed to change. I needed to change my patterns. I needed to change the things I saw every day because I was just reliving the same things.
Right.
I moved across the country to California.
That's a good change, Kira. I think that cannot be more different than Boston. So I think that was really smart. How did you come to that decision?
Well, I lived in LA with a friend of mine for a little while in my very early 20s. And I said, someday I'm moving back to California. I want to live in California. I don't know why. It was just always in my head. And so I said, after my trial's over, I'm going to move to California and I'm going to start riding horses again. And I'm going to change.
Hey.
I am going to change whether they want their life changed or not. I am going to change my children's life and my life. It's happening. I had to really talk myself into it and force myself to do it.
But I think it worked. It sounds like it really, really worked.
It did. It did. It really did. And every day it's a conscious decision. Every day it has to be a conscious decision to stand up and fight to want to live. And and that finally brought me to a point where I actually do want to live. So, it's like that old saying, you fake it till you make it. But I almost had to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it's so perfect that you finally got there,
Yeah.
So now I guess let's talk about present day. Thank you for being on the show, obviously. But I always like to spend the last 5 or so minutes talking about anything else that helps you day to day. Is it we've actually talked about horses at least twice on the show with others who really find like equestrian therapy their favorite thing, and say that horses really have this sense of protection. I think one guest said, I don't know, maybe talk more about that or about your kiddos who are still there with you and where you are with their relationship with them now. Are they teenagers?
22 and almost 20. So they've lived this their whole lives. Yeah. And no, they're still here and they're fantastic. And, functioning adults, not having to deal, so much. I don't want to say they were taking care of me when they were little, but not worried about what my reaction to things was going to be.
Right.
And working with horses is one of the most amazing things ever. I love it. I've really, in the last, a couple of years, sunk into taking care of myself, really, because what I was doing, even after I was making myself better, I was busy taking care of other people because it's easier than focusing on yourself. And I couldn't take care of myself because then you got to look at yourself and be in the moment. And those are all things I didn't want to do for a long time, but I'm really trying to sink in and take care of myself as a priority. So riding, I do a lot of Pilates now, which I love. But I love it. And riding. And another thing that has really helped me is speaking. So like I speak for Ann Burgess at Boston College every year. And I've done that since 2015. And talking to her is wonderful. She's so funny every year because every year she's like, I just have watched you evolve from 2015 to now. How much you've changed, because it's just such a mess, and just coming to, she's gotten to see full circle, and it's just wonderful because I get to go and help people that want to be, nurses or doctors or whatever, in the FBI. And, they can ask me questions and I can tell them, my story in detail, and they get every detail of the rape and every detail in my court cases. And, it just comes firsthand perspective where normally they don't always get that. And then they can ask me any question they want, which is fantastic. It's actually very healing.
I totally get that. Obviously, Kira, or my listeners know you. I speak, and it is so healing. It is really therapeutic to be able to share this painful thing and help others understand exactly how difficult the entire process is. But maybe share two of your favorite questions that you've received when you've been there speaking at Boston College.
Well, I think I definitely have, there's a lot of questions, but I think I have one favorite, and I don't even know that I still have the answer to this because there is an answer, I think, now that I say that. It's always, what could people have done better to help me after, right? Like, because I always say I did have friends that didn't leave my side, but no one knows what to do for someone that's been raped, right? Or they just, everyone says, move on to the next chapter. You never move on. It's always in your head. It has now rewired your brain. You are a different person. But the best thing to do is just to be there. You don't have to talk. You just listen. Or don't talk at all. Sometimes just be there and just show up for the person. Mm-hmm. But I think that's that's a reoccurring question every year.
Right. Like, how can I
help? Yeah. And educate ourselves, right? We need to educate ourselves.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I go back to when you said, you didn't even know anyone, or so you thought, when this happened to you. And yet now, out of the woodwork, there's so many.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that your kids are seeing a different side of you now, and, growing up just fine. I hope that they are able to listen to some of your speeches so they understand as young adults now. Like, when they were children, it might have been really confusing, but hopefully, we can all hope that our family members better understand our experience as well.
Well, yeah, and it has helped. And my daughter, for the first time, actually heard me. We're making a movie about my story, and they came here to film some B-roll about for the movie they're making about the story. And so Scarlett, for the first time, heard me speak in detail about the rape, which was very interesting because now she's 19, so it was just interesting because she had never heard me speak it. She'd of course seen it online. The wonderful world of the internet. There's not hiding anything anymore.
No, I agree. Yes, absolutely. So, Kira, I guess some of the things that you do now, you don't have to park in parking garages anymore, right?
There are times that I have, and I will not lie. Since I have been raped, I will not park in a parking garage alone. I can't even bring myself to drive in there. I would have to be with a group, and there would have to be no other option. And it's hard for me to even walk by them. I can't. It's hard to look at them, But yes, I have a hard time parking anywhere. It changes your whole perspective of the world.
Yeah, it creates this entire sense of vulnerability. And I guess maybe my last question would be, since this was a stranger assault, we've had so many people on the show who've been assaulted by family members or, high school friends they thought were friends.
Right.
For you as a survivor of the stranger assault, which was originally, the original stereotype is like, that's the only thing we need to be worried about. Just carry the mace and don't walk alone. Right. So as the survivor of I'll say the original theory of rape, how does that impact your, I guess if you were talking to someone who'd been assaulted by a family member, how would you explain, do you think it's, any different or unique or what would you have in common with them?
Well, because I don't know how to say it. I don't want to, one isn't worse or different or you know what I mean? I think it changes your whole perspective on the world, no matter what. And you become less trusting of everyone. Like I was scared to be in my house and I was scared to be out of my house. Nowhere in the world was safe at this point. And then, and you go and you hear all these stories and people start telling you their stories. And there was no one else that came to me and had a strange rape. Everyone was telling me about a family member or a so-called friend that had raped them. So then you're taking their stories in and it opens up a whole new world for you. And I was like, I'm not safe anywhere, and then you don't let your kids talk to family anymore. And, so I think that, unfortunately, they're so intertwined.
Yeah. I think that was so beautifully said, Kira, and I'm glad that you were able to explain it the way you did, because I like thinking about that question I get a lot is, it's like I don't rank. So some victims will come up or survivors will come up and say, well, my story isn't as bad as yours. I'm like, no, it's all bad.
It's all bad. And no one tells you how extremely violent and, aggressive and horrible rape is. And I think that's one of the most important things to talk about. And it doesn't matter if it's a stranger, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a stranger. It is a violent, horrible crime. And one is not worse than the other.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So, just re-emphasizing rape is rape is rape, and violence is violence, and the healing is the healing, and we all have to do the work. And I guess I'm really, really happy about the migration out to California and the horse farm.
Yeah, it actually saved my life because I really didn't believe until 2 years ago that I wanted to be alive. So, I had wished that man had killed me in that parking garage because it would have been easier. And it really helped me change my perspective to not relive the same streets every night. And now I can go back to Boston and not, it's hard and it's scary, but I can remember that I love it there and I have friends and things there. But I think that I wouldn't have gotten out of the cycle, and unfortunately, if I hadn't left.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Kira, you are a hero for so many. And that you shared all you did today is going to definitely benefit more of our listeners and help others just understand. And thank you for continuing to go back to Speak at BC with Ann Burgess. I think that is also just an annual dose of positivity for you, even though it's revisiting where it happened, but it's also revisiting with a purpose to help build strength and confidence and understanding. So I really, really am grateful to have met you.
I'm so grateful that you had me on. Thank you so much. And what an honor to meet you. I've been listening to all your podcasts, and thank you so much.
Yeah, it's always like, I think what's great for our listeners is, come on, every single conversation is so unique and special and just a treasure. It's a treasure and an honor to listen to someone and support them and be there on the other side of a screen.
Right.
And also just such a joy that we get to share our small triumphs, our struggles, and that we're never alone. So wonderful. Thank you, Kira.
Thank you.
Keep ride on. I'll say ride on. Yeah, ride on and ride up and keep going.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
100%. And again, for our listeners, just, take a moment. I think it's so nice to just reflect and write down just a couple notes, because my goodness, now we have well over 100 episodes, and each and every one has just been such an incredible dose of goodness. So keep remembering each and every one of our guests and honoring their journey with your own. So take care, and until next week, take it one day at a time. Together we thrive and survive.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Dear Katie. These conversations are never easy, but they're always necessary, and we're so grateful you chose to share this space with us. If something in today's episode stirred something within you, please give yourself what you need. Whether that's rest, support, or just a deep breath, you're not alone. To hear more stories, resources, and survivor-centered conversations, be sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to hear from you, so please leave us a review and share your feedback. Your thoughts help us create episodes that resonate with listeners. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.